every story appears ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello and welcome to CoreTV Primetime News. I am Abosedi Omowe. Our top stories tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now to details of the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed concern over low ranking of the country's universities. The president, represented by the Executive Secretary, National Universities Commission, Julius Okoje, made this known in Bauchi at the convocation ceremony of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi. He says it is worrisome that no Nigerian university is quoted among the top 100 universities in the world, adding that if the country does not aspire to be among the world-class universities, then it cannot boast of a robust system capable of making the country among the top economies of the world. He blamed incessant strikes by teachers as major bottlenecks to the progress of the country's university system. The president, however, calls on the state government to support and encourage universities situated in their states. And away from that, the Minister of Works, Power and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has advocated the adoption of a collective national attitude that would make it possible to invest the over 5 trillion naira fund constituting the contributions of the nation's working class into real sectors as a means of diversifying the nation's economy and achieving inclusive growth. Fashola, who spoke while delivering a keynote address at the National Pension Industry Strategy Implementation Roadmap Retreat, says the dwindling revenue from the country's major source of income, the crude oil, affirmed the need to diversify and change the face of the nation's economy once and for all. In his keynote address titled Overcoming the Challenges and Managing the Risks and Constraints that Inhibit the Investment of Private Capital and Funds in Nigeria's infrastructure landscape in order to make a visible economic impact, Fashola notes that with the right attitude to diversification, utilizing the huge fund representing the contribution of Nigeria's working class pension, it could be shown that the national economy is bigger than the challenges posed by the dwindling oil prices. In other news, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, says Nigeria's 2016 budget will help the federal government to build a resilient economy. Addressing journalists at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, the finance minister pointed out that the country has no other choice than to borrow for capital investment through its medium-term expenditure framework. She notes that Nigeria's past borrowings were not well utilized. The finance minister further states that the oil price has given the country a unique opportunity to do the right thing at $31 per barrel. And away from that, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has described Nigeria's present situation as trying times that Nigeria will overcome. Speaking at an interactive session with journalists in Lagos, the minister says there is the courage and political will to surmount these problems. He also notes that corruption is the most daunting task before the government and says the problem is not insurmountable. He says nobody has been vilified in the fight against corruption. Rather, it is a fight that must have a face and stop the endemic poverty that corruption creates. Lai Mohammed emphasizes the looting of the treasury to the tune of 1.5 trillion naira is money meant for the socio-economic development of much-needed infrastructural facilities like hospitals, roads, schools, and other social amenities. He, however, highlights the number of the Suki Gates beneficiaries, and the list of the looters amount to just 21 individuals, and companies are huge sources of drains to Nigeria's economy. Away from that now, the Ministry of State for Solid Minerals has described Taraba State as one of the richest states when it comes to solid minerals. The minister made this assertion as he visits the state on a fact-finding mission in respect to mining activities in the country. Odua Godwin gives us details.
The Minister of State and Solid Minerals affirms the commitment of the federal government on dwindling revenue of the country, hence the need to intensify efforts and look for possible ways to harness the potentials in the state. He pointed out that the ministry will put its best to discourage illegal mining and incorporate people to deal in mining in a way that will not cause harm and also generate revenue for the state and country at large.
And so on. Here we are aware of how rich Taraba State is when it comes to gemstones. We receive reports of what is going on here, and as of last week, I'm aware of a blue sapphire that was discovered here and was sold for $10 million. $10 million today translates to almost 3 billion. So if we were directly involved as a government in such activities, and Taraba today discover 10 of such things, you can imagine with an architect as a governor how this state will be transformed. For a long time, we've ignored this industry. Let's not deceive ourselves. So we shouldn't blame the illegal miners, because for long we ignore the industry. If we had organized ourselves like it is in Ghana or in South Africa, or so many other parts of Africa, wouldn't have been in this situation.
In his readiness to synergize with the federal government to harness the solid minerals in the state, Taraba State Governor disclosed that 7 rarest minerals are found in the state. He emphasized on the need for proper monitoring team to be set up in order to get accurate information on how to tap on its resources.
Taraba State, we're fully ready with our mining company to collaborate with the federal government, and we want to set up this our company so that every month, as we're getting whatever, we'll declare the federal government's own, declare the state tax, and the company's profit will be able to declare it. And we're very, very willing and ready to partner with foreigners, especially serious people who are into mining. Because, as I said, we have various minerals. The 7 rarest minerals are found in Taraba State.
The minister is expected to visit the site at Mambila Plateau, where the mining site is located. Udwa Godwin, CoreTV News, Jalingo.
The Minister of State for Mineral Resources. There, now moving away from that, the Niger Delta human rights activist and a freedom fighter, Annika Briggs, has called on the federal government to tread cautiously by ensuring that innocent people in communities where oil pipelines are vandalized are not affected in the onslaught against militants who were said to be behind the bombing of oil pipelines. Briggs notes that the high deposits of crude oil, which is meant to be a blessing to the Niger Delta people, has brought a lot of sufferings in form of incessant military actions from the federal government. She warns the federal government and its military to desist from actions capable of breaching the peace in the Niger Delta region.
No, there are crimes everywhere. If a criminal activity has taken place, it is the responsibility of the police to seek out these criminals. And where the police cannot seek out the criminals, and we're now saying that a community like Baramatu is a threat to the federal government of Nigeria, then the federal government of Nigeria had declared war on Baramatu. Acts that will make people or a group of people in Nigeria or a region or a community to feel victimized is unacceptable, is an abuse of basic people's basic human rights. Assuming that they believe it's Tompolo that did it. If they go into Baramatu and they don't see Tompolo, they should leave Baramatu.
Away from that now, the United Nations human rights experts have urged Nigeria to increase its efforts to help women and children after they have been freed from captivity by Boko Haram in the country's conflict-riven northeast. 3 special rapporteurs of the UN, after a 5-day visit to the region, say there is an urgent and pressing need for effective measures to address stigma, ostracism, and rejection of women and children as a result of their captivity. The kidnap of women and young girls, as well as a forced conscription of men and boys, are tactics that the Boko Haram has used throughout the conflict, which is now in its 7th year. The abduction in April 2014 of over 200 students from their school in the northeastern town of Chibok, Borno State, is the most high-profile, causing global outrage. Human rights groups have said thousands of others have been seized in recent years, forced into marriage with Islamist fighters, and subject to physical and psychological abuse. The experts who specialize in child welfare issues, contemporary slavery, and healthcare acknowledge Nigeria's efforts to find and free those abducted, but are of the opinion that the lack of information on the steps taken to find abducted persons, including the Chibok girls, and document cases of kidnappings and abductions remains a source of major concern. Now, away from that, as the Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Fatai Owosheni, has reassured Lagosians of the force's readiness to combating armed robbery attacks that have terrorized the residents of Morogbo neighborhood around the Lagos-Badagry Expressway. With speculations on the existence of a robbery gang known as 1 Million Boys, the Commissioner dissuades the minds of Lagosians but enjoins them to be security conscious in their various neighborhoods.
You can go to those areas where they said 1 million boys are carrying out their activities. The officers of this command had met with the community there, and they will tell you that they don't know where those people that are reporting 1 million boys are getting their report. Just like with every other thing, it could be a way of distracting the police. It could be a way of laying ambush.
While questions were raised over the new uniform of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, the head of the Lagos State Police Command says uniform is to complement the identity of each officer.
How complex this country is. Isn't it? It is you, my friends, that are sitting down here, that if you see a policeman on the road that is not wearing police uniform, that is operating with a vehicle that is not clearly marked police, that will send SMS to the Inspector General of Police that you have seen somebody on the road not conforming with the directive of the IG. And you are the same people that are asking me that I should cover the identity of policemen. How do you juxtapose that? That is one. Then number two, the fact everywhere in the world, the fact that someone is SAS or the fact that someone is a detective shouldn't be that it should be masquerade. There must be a face. Is it not the same media that were accusing security operatives of wearing masks? Our friend in SSS. And you are saying that I should also turn the policemen into masquerades. Eh? you need to put faces to certain operations.
Now, 5 cases of bird flu has been reported in Plateau State. Details of this report and others right after this break. To stay with us.
Because I want to be a doctor and help people when they are sick. I want better education and training so I can be a soldier and protect my country. I want better roads to avoid accidents so I can get to school on time safely.
For topical issues, Nigerians must have something to say.
Arms. We don't need arms for anything. Let them put it into education.
They need to buy another arms now. What are they fighting for? Who? Government should deal with them squarely.
Please help us bring back our guests. No money, no markets. We are dying. Everybody is crying. Nothing.
Any man God support, no man stops.
It's a prophecy I believe he must have received from heaven. Yes.
The people giving voice to the voiceless.
Thank you so much for being there. And perhaps you've just joined us. You're watching CoreTV Primetime News. Now, a look at our top stars. Now, all our top stories and other information can be found on our social media platforms. Facebook.com/CoreTV News and on Twitter at CoreTV News NG. You can watch our videos on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/CoreTV News. Now, moving on, 5 cases of bird flu has been reported in Plateau State. The Public Relations Officer of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, Plateau Chapter, Gladys Chinedu, made the disclosure to our reporter in Jos. Plateau State is one of the fastest breeding ground for the flu due to large concentration of poultry farms at various locations. Here is the rest of the story.
The apprehension that greeted both eaters and owners of poultry birds in Jos when bird flu cases were reported in Kano and other western states has reached its peak, as cases of the flu has been reported in places across the state, which has led to the killing of several birds.
As I'm talking to you now, we have about 5 cases. 1 in Rantia, 1 in Gamajiko, the other 1 in Bassa, and 1 in Dong. The one in Abatua, they have not really confirmed it. It's still there in Von.
The chairman of Chicken Sellers Association in the state, simply referred to as Yankeji, allayed fears of consumers about the diseases while assuring them that none of his members will be allowed to buy poultry birds from any infected farm.
If there is any disease, we used to call on our people that they should not go and carry chicken from anybody until we confirm if the chicken is diseased by the flu, then we won't allow my people to carry the bird.
In the same vein, while recounting their losses since the recent entrance of the flu in the state, some poultry farmers in Jos said they are taking every biosecurity measures to ensure that none of them fall victim to the bird flu.
The biosecurity, educate my worker how to go about it, use disinfectant properly, soak themselves in it, clean my entire environment, and then drive away all this, because this is deep litter system. Drive away all this local chicken that comes around.
It has affected me greatly, not only me, a couple of farmers.
The sad story of bird flu cases in Plateau State will not be easily forgotten due to lack of compensation from government to the affected poultry farmers whenever there is an outbreak.
Now in health, while battling Lassa fever seems to top health agenda of Nigeria and some states, some diseases are not receiving less attention, especially in Ekiti State, which is having a high rate of measles in children. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, in conjunction with the state primary health care agency, embarked on sensitization training, creating awareness ahead of the measles immunization program to be held statewide between January 28th and February 1st. Rashid now reports.
Measles in Ekiti State, according to UNICEF, is on the high rise. This is compounded by the inability of mothers to immunize their children as at when due. This trend, however, poses great danger for the state.
In Ekiti State, in fact, as at November last year, suspected cases of measles is about 371 cases in Ekiti State. So there is the need for this campaign, that is integrated measles campaign. And not only that, we discovered that there are a lot of children above 9 months of age that have not even taken the first dose of measles vaccine.
Alarmed with this high rate, UNICEF, in conjunction with the state primary health care, is set for statewide immunization, advising parents to present their children for the exercise.
They should move out, bring in their babies. This time around, it's not house-to-house campaign, it's facility-based. And what we are using is the nearest health facilities to their domain, or the temporary feast posts, which we can have in the market, in the Bales or Chief's house.
The statewide measles immunization exercise is to start on the 28th of January through February 1st, 2015. Rashid, CoreTV News, Ado Ekiti.
Now, as shortage of fuel persists in some parts of the country, the people of Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, seem to have found an alternative way as they now patronize black marketers in the metropolis. Now, while black marketers believe they are helping the public, the independent petroleum marketers blame the situation on shortage of fuel, asking for government intervention. Rashid again reports.
Most petrol stations in Ilorin for the past few weeks do not have products to sell, while the few that have usually cope with long queues. However, most roads and streets now have people selling the products by the roadside as they openly display the unavailable ones in the petrol station. Some black marketers say they engage in the act in saving motorists from hardship.
I was a butcher before I became a black marketer. You buy fuel as high as 130 naira or 150 naira and even travel as far as Sungai to get fuel. We sell between 900 naira and 1,000 naira after adding the cost of
Motorists alike explain why they have to patronize black marketers.
You have a lot of activities you want to do every day. When you go to filling stations, you don't get fuel, so you have to look for alternative. What is the alternative? The black market. You have to go to them, buy, even if it's not something that we should encourage. But when we don't have, we have to go out, look for what to eat, and when we don't have, that becomes very difficult.
The Department of Petroleum Resources speaks on readiness of the agency to arrest those who trade in illegal buying and selling.
There are still some who are making effort to get it, probably at midnight. So some marketers, we got a security report about some marketers who are engaging in that, selling at midnight to these jerrycan people. And we are working on that. So maybe we get those marketers involved in these sub-practices, they will be well sanctioned. They will sanction them properly.
In his reaction, the state chairman of the Independent Petroleum Marketers blamed the situation on lack of petrol at fuel stations.
The only thing the federal government can do to remedy, to restrict those type of situations is just to pump a product, excess supply. There is, in the history of scarcity, there is never a time that monitoring, policing or whatever solve the problem. It's supply. When you put out the product, everything will crash. How many people will you be driving? You will see people filling up their tanks. They will still buy jerrycan.
It is hoped that the situation will soon subside for motorists to heave a sigh of relief. Rashid, CoreTV News, Ilorin.
Now talking education, the University of Jos, in collaboration with Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, have promised their international partners of making judicious use of the grants given to them. The institutions, which got over $600,000 research grants, made the promise in Jos. Here is the rest of the story.
Receiving grants in Nigerian universities has not really been a problem in the last couple of years, but the judicious use of same, which has made international donors skeptical. It was on the view of this that the chairman of the grant committee from the two receiving institutions promised to use the grant strictly for its purpose.
This grant has a unique mentoring system or strategy that every research project that is to be run on this grant would have two mentors.
That AU and University of Jos have teamed up with our international partners to further stimulate and strengthen research capacity.
The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Jos says the grant would assist the university to foster medical research works that could improve the nation's health sector.
We'll strengthen the research curriculum of our postgraduate degree programs in both our universities and provide scholarships for deserving junior faculty in the two Nigerian universities, at least to train them up to the master's degrees level. We will make sure that the program succeeds.
In their response, the international donors, who were represented by two professors from the United States, emphasized the specific purpose of the grant.
PEPFAR has created not only a tremendous accomplishment in saving people's lives, but it's also benefited the institutions where these programs have been developed.
The overall goal really is to create the next generation of researchers in an academic institution, medical institution, that are independent. They end up with a sustainable research program that can attract international extramural funding.
While the world is watching to see what the two northern Nigerian universities will do with the grant, it is to be noted that the University of Jos teaching staff have been on strike for the past 3 months on issues bordering on staff welfare and non-payment of their allowances.
Now, housing in the Federal Capital Territory is becoming a headache for many residents of the territory, with the cost of renting houses so high. Many tenants and intending tenants are at the mercy of the landlords. This is becoming worrisome to some and is catching the attention of the House of Representatives. A bill for an act to regulate their rights and obligations under tenancy agreements is being considered.
The bill is seeking ways to improve relations between landlords and tenants in the area of tenancy agreement. Members are emphatic about the fact that most tenants pass through difficulties, especially as they are forced to sign agreements without choices.
In the Federal Capital Territory, no such law exists, which means that the relationship of landlord and tenant has over time been regulated by the discretion of the landlord and in some cases discretion of the tenant, depending of course on who is stronger. We seek to enact this law to guide the operations of tenancy within the Federal Capital Territory. This bill, when made into an act, will define the rights and obligations of the landlord and define also the rights and obligations of the tenants.
Some of the members are expressing surprise that a law like this has not been put forward before, considering the hassles tenants have to go through in the FCT.
Some of us are victims of this arbitrary relationship that is not guided by established laws, where a tenant will wake up overnight, a landlord will arbitrarily raise his tenancy fee and force you to pay. If you don't, he goes to court and gets some court orders. The law is long overdue. I commend the mover, and I want to beg members of this House to support it.
Mr. Speaker,
it is important for us to note that it's only in Nigeria that people will pay 1 year, 2 or 3 years rent upfront. Only in this country. You go to any other place in the world, you either pay monthly, quarterly, or biannually. So I see this as the only solution that will solve this problem, whereby people that are, especially those that are on monthly pay or monthly salary, this will allow them to be able to pay rent and to save money for other things.
Residents of the territory sometimes have to pay as much as between 200 and 300,000 naira for a self-contained apartment in a suburb, and this is against the backdrop of low incomes.
A relationship between landlord and tenant, as a legal relationship purely, it does not exist. I also want to buy the argument of Honorable Shagari, feel as if they were mine. We need to also establish very strong rent alternative tribunal in Federal Capital Territory. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, tenants suffer in the hands of landlords in Federal Capital Territory. Likewise, also landlords suffer in the hands of tenants. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, it makes no sense for one to come into Abuja, rent an apartment for 3 years when the landlord is not your banker. You give them your money upfront for 3 solid years. And in that wise, people rent houses, they are not able to furnish it because they've given the landlord all for 3 years advance. If only can the landlord easily kick you out if you are not forthcoming.
With the bill passing second reading and it's being referred to the committees on housing and FCT, the expectation is that some concrete decisions will be taken to ease the suffering tenants go through in the FCT. Jamila Fegwa, CoreTV News, Abuja.
Still ahead tonight, report from outside Nigeria and from the interesting world of sports. Do join us right after this break for details.
Thank you.
Chima, what do you do so?
Same market now.
Hey, person when they buy the market, you don't get a receipt. What do you do?
Which receipt? No be pocket money they go.
Hey, you didn't pay tax.
Who be tax?
Guy, all these health centers wey dey run na tax o.
My brother, make I tell you, good road na tax, security na tax. No school where your children dey go, how you think say dem dey take pay the teachers? Brother, na tax. And if you no pay your tax, my brother, dem go lock your shop.
Abeg Tunde, where did they pay the tax?
Na for tax office na.
Carry me go there.
Who go? Abu, help us look shop abeg.
You can now watch CoreTV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to CoreTV Primetime News.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click CoreTV, leave a space, then news. CoreTV News, a 24-hour news station.
Welcome back. Now to report from outside Nigeria. 4 people have been killed and at least 2 wounded when a gunman opened fire at a high school and a second location in the Canadian province of Saskatchewan. Officials disclosed that a male suspect was in custody, but yet to give the motive behind the shooting in La Loc, an Aboriginal community 600 kilometers north of the city of Saskatoon. Police Chief Superintendent Maureen Levy, who also confirmed the incident, say authorities had seized the suspect's gun. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has condemned the attack, describing it as every parent's worst nightmare. Away from that, Tunisia's Prime Minister Habib Essid has held an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss a wave of protests and rioting over growing unemployment in the country. The meeting came a day after the government declared a nationwide curfew after 4 days of violence in which thousands of dissatisfied people took to the streets demanding immediate action against unemployment and poor economic conditions. In a televised address, President Beji Caid Essebsi assured them that the government would put a program in place to try to ease the jobless rate. President Essebsi, however, warned that members of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL in neighboring Libya, may use the unrest in Tunisia to sneak into the country. And now to Tanzania, where the United Nations says the country is struggling to contain a deadly outbreak of cholera that has claimed at least 222 lives since August. In a statement released, the World Health Organization and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, say the outbreak is straining local capacities and resources and poses a high risk to lives and the economy. The statement disclosed that the number of reported cases of cholera has climbed to 14,303 across 27 districts in the country since the outbreak began last August. Cholera is a deadly disease that can kill within hours if left untreated, and surveys show that the source for the outbreak is contaminated water, usually born out of poor hygienic practices and lack of sanitation facilities. And now the U.S. has denied taking control of a Syrian airstrip in response to an opposition group's claim that American troops are supporting Kurdish fighters in northern Syria with such a takeover. Speaking to newsmen, a spokesman of the United States Central Command, CENTCOM, also reiterates the military's denial that U.S. forces have taken control of any airfield in Syria. However, the website of Texas-based security analyst Stratfor said the satellite imagery supports claims of U.S. military activity in Syria. The Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, say the U.S. had taken control of the Rumelia airstrip in Syria's northern province of Hasaka to support Kurdish fighters against the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant ISIL group. Moving on now to sports.
Our style, and that's what he delivered. Here's that ball, storming, Toyo with a flying lead.
Go, taking them out in the lead and really.
In sports today, the Zimbabwe Warriors were knocked out of the ongoing African Nations Championship, losing 0-1 to Mali in a crucial Group D match. Mali earns a swift revenge against Zimbabwe, who knocked them out from the 2014 African Nations Championship in the quarter-final stage. The solitary goal for Mali came late in the 82nd minute as it took the lead after a left-sided free kick from Samake was volleyed home from a couple of yards out by Sissoko to give Mali the deserved 1-0 lead. Zimbabwe came into the game under pressure, needing a win after succumbing to a 1-0 loss to Zambia in the group opener and remaining at the bottom of the group, while Mali had settled for a 2-2 draw against the Uganda Cranes. Andy Murray recovered from a second-set slam to see off a spirited challenge from Portugal's João Sousa and move into the Australian Open fourth round. The world number 2 easily took the first set but allowed Sousa back in before recomposing himself in a 6-2, 3-6, 6-2, 6-2 win against the number 32 seed. The 28-year-old Briton will next play Australia's 16th seed Bernard Tomic. Meanwhile, as Murray was on court, news broke of his father-in-law, Nigel Sears collapsing in the Rod Laver Arena. Sears' coach of Ana Ivanovic was watching her match against Madison Keys. The 58-year-old had been taken to hospital for tests. And away from that, Ana Ivanovic loses to 15th seed Madison Keys in the Australian Open. The 20th seed was a set-up when her coach Nigel Sears collapsed, and Ivanovic went on to lose 4-6, 6-4, 6-4. Sears is in his second spell working Ivanovic after being reappointed in July last year. It is the second time this week that one of Ivanovic's matches has been suspended due to an incident in the stands. And to other reports, it was all drama in Old Trafford as Southampton shocked Manchester United with an 87th minute goal. Substitute Charlie Austin scored 7 minutes into his Southampton debut to inflict more Old Trafford pain on a lackluster Manchester United. Austin rose to head home a corner in the 87th minute to win an otherwise dull game of few chances. United and their manager Louis van Gaal were booed off by home fans at full time after producing just one shot on target in 90 minutes. Southampton have now won at United in the league for the last 2 seasons. And finally in sports, Adam Lallana's injury time strike saw Liverpool edge a 9-goal thriller at Norwich in one of the most dramatic Premier League games of the season. Roberto Firmino scuffed the Reds ahead, but Dimerix Mbokani's back heel leveled and Steven Naismith's debut strike put the home side in front. Wes Hoolahan added a penalty before Jordan Henderson and Firmino struck. James Milner pulled the away side ahead, and though Sebastian Bassong netted in added time, Lallana delivered a twist. The England midfielder's volley, which was fired into the ground and bounced agonizingly in for the home side, sparked chaotic scenes as Reds boss Jurgen Klopp raced along the touchline to celebrate with his players. And now to end the news, another look at our top stars. And that's been it on CoreTV Primetime News today. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Abosedi Omori. Have a very great night.